Thank you all for joining today's CaFÉ webinar. We'll be talking about various things that the CaFÉ team has learned the past year about hosting calls for entry during the pandemic. So the key items that we'll include today are preparing for a virtual exhibition, tips for organizing and managing applications, CaFé's event postponement, cancellation, and refund protocols. And then we'll finish off today with tips for communicating with artists. It goes without saying that there has been a necessary shift within the arts community to find alternative ways to create, present, and sell art. It's not hard to find examples of how galleries, public art programs, and other art organizations are adapting to this. Setting up virtual exhibitions through a call on CaFÉ is pretty straightforward, as the process is pretty much the same as hosting a regular one. However, there are a few things to keep in mind that will help you in the long run. So the first one might seem obvious, but it's worth mentioning that it's important to clarify in your prospectus, in your long description, if the exhibition is held virtually or virtually alongside an in-person event. So including the words virtual in your call title itself or online could help you reach artists, because we have a lot of them that are specifically searching for virtual opportunities. So having it in your call name means that when they search for it on the call listings page, your call will be included in the results. Your prospectus should also be as clear as possible about what the virtual exhibition entails. So here's a long description. I can show you how this looks in our preview. This is what it would look like to artists. So your prospectus here just wants to make sure that you include information about a virtual exhibition. So you can include things like what dates it will be available, will the art itself be listed for sale on your website, or will it link to the artist's website, how will the event be promoted. Artists are more likely to apply to calls that have detailed information about where their artwork will be seen if they're invited to participate. The more specific you are, the better. So secondly, your application itself should be tailored for a virtual exhibition. If you want to, if you want to make the transition from CaFÉ to the virtual exhibition even smoother, there are a few things you might want to make sure you collect from the artists. So on the application editor here, you can create any number of questions that we'll use that you can pull from later on. You can, we have several guides and webinars to show you how to actually create these questions, so I'm not going to go over it today. But just so you know that you can include things here like the artist biography, any like sale information if you do decide to do it through the online exhibition. Any of these custom questions can be built for information that you'll need later on when creating your labels or creating your online gallery. To collect this information after you've gathered it here, you'll go to the Events Management tab, select the work or the status that you need. You could also click View All. And then at the top right here, we have these reports. And these reports will allow you to download the answers to the custom questions and easily pull that information to use it for your virtual spaces. So I recommend under Download Spreadsheet here, you could go to the Application Answers report, and this will show you all the answers to their application custom questions. So you can easily pull their biography, artist statement, anything like that. Then the final tip I have for calls hosting virtual exhibitions is just making sure you follow through with it. And you can do so in a way that is similar to an in-person one, at least as close as possible. While it's difficult to engage with the community who would normally attend an in-person event, there are still ways to make online exhibitions exciting and close to normal. And we've seen a few examples of that already. So maybe you put on a virtual opening or a closing reception via Zoom, maybe award prizes to the top works and announce them via social media. Building hype around the online exhibition would be beneficial to both you and the artists that are still looking for opportunities and ways to sell their work. If you're putting together an in-person exhibition still, you still might need artists to ship or drop off their artwork like normal. Well, I still have a couple suggestions for you in that case. My first suggestion is like what I mentioned before, which is just to be sure to outline exactly in your long description, in your prospectus guidelines, exactly what is required of the artist in order to ship or drop off their artwork. Some galleries are open by appointment only. So if artists need to schedule a time to drop off their work if accepted, tell them that. If the artist has to ship to a location that's not the gallery's physical address, perhaps it's a residential address if you're working from home, it's better the artist knows that ahead of time. And secondly, we suggest that you be as transparent as possible about any in-person safety precautions you're taking during COVID. Providing this information in your call details will help avoid artists running into unexpected hurdles and then becoming upset at you. It's just not something we want to happen. If an artist is uncomfortable with something, at least they know that ahead of time before they apply. So those are some of my tips I have for running virtual exhibitions or just making sure that you provide all the information during this time where things are all sorts of crazy. And then this lesson is making sure that you stay organized. While this system keeps your applications in one place, you may need to sort or make note of certain applications as you get ready to jury or perhaps before you transition off of CaFÉ and onto your actual exhibition or event. There are a few ways to organize your entries that I will show you now. So we'll start off in the Events Management tab. As a reminder, or if you're less familiar with CaFÉ, this management page here is really our application dashboard for when you start receiving and start working with the applications. From here, you can search for and find applications on the box on the right, or you can change their statuses with any of these statuses here, and then you can actually review the applications themselves from here. So the first step I have to stay organized is to use these different statuses that are available to you and arrange them to sort your applications. They will appear in the receive status when you first receive them, but they don't have to stay there. When the artist submits their entry, you can click on their application ID to review them. We'll give it a little look over. This is the artist citation page. I'll go back. And then if you need to change the status for whatever reason, you can change the drop-down menu of the status column to any of the statuses available here. So like I said, you can use any of these statuses. Let's say you need to review the application before it's juried. Let's say you need to check if it's eligible. You can then look it over, and then when you're ready, place it in the reviewed status and click Save down here. Let's say maybe there's an issue with it or you need to come back and check it. You could put it into the other status. The other status is actually a good just catch-all status for any other need or any reason that you need it to be. And then some others that could be useful could be maybe withdrawn. You can put an artist in the withdrawn status if they remove it from consideration, or if maybe they're disqualified from the event since they're not eligible, you could place them in the withdrawn status. Other ones that aren't used as frequently are like exempt from jury. This could be used if a board president or something like that is exempt from the jury and already going to be participating in the event. You could just set them aside here. And then any of these other statuses are really available to you if you need them. Just keep in mind that some of them, like invited, not invited, things like that, will actually be seen by the artist until you, well, actually all the statuses will be seen by the artist until you actually start your jury. So if you put them in statuses like invited or not invited, declined, things like that, those ones might cause confusion for artists if they know that the jury is not even started yet. So I recommend just using some of these other ones in the meantime, and then you can use those more definitive statuses later on. And then another way to keep track of applications or make note of them is to add internal comments. So to do that, you would find your table of applications by clicking on the status or searching for it. And then you'll see here under the notes column, we have the ability to click on add comment. This will bring up a pop-up window, in my case, a separate tab, where you can enter in these comments. So I can say like check on eligibility, and then you can click edit to save it. I spelled it wrong because I can't type in front of others. Anyway, so then you'll just see a preview under this notes column, and you can click on it again to view the full comment and then change it or delete it if you need. And just click edit to make changes. You could also flag an application here if you need to. This will obviously show the color red that you can, draw attention back to it. And then you can also click the flag heading to sort by all the flagged applications. Another thing you could do is tag your applications. You can see that we have this tag column here. And to tag one, you would go to the artist citation page by clicking on the ID number. You can see the application here. And at the bottom right, there's a space for you to create a tag. This could be for any reason that you choose. You just have to limit it to 12 characters. And then you'll click Save. You can see that the tag is there. When we come back to the events management page, you'll see the tag listed under the tag column. This can be helpful. You could filter for tagged applications only on this box, or you can do what I did before here and click the heading to sort by all of the tagged applications. Just make note that any comments, flags, or tags can't be seen by the artist, so you don't have to worry about them seeing that. The tags actually can be seen by the juror, so that might be actually a helpful thing if you need to tag the application and communicate something to the juror, but they're not visible to the artist. And comments here and flags aren't visible to the jurors either, so only tags are. Some folks have many artists that are asking to edit their application, in which case you'd put them in the incomplete status, or maybe the deadline is passed and they need to make a change, so you'd put them in the exception status. As you start to work with these different artists, it's important that you stay organized to figure out exactly why the application needs to be edited, things like that. So my tip to you is just to use those tools to stay organized. So one of the other lessons we've learned during this time, one of the things that we are still learning about actually, is the impact the pandemic has had on artists as well as organizations such as yourself, both logistically and financially. I do want to acknowledge the time and resources you put into hosting calls for entries, events, and projects, and how the entry fees collected by artists go into that hard work. I also want to acknowledge how entry fees can be a pain point for artists when it comes time for finding opportunities for their work to be shown. We've seen a lot of artists searching for calls specifically with low entry fees, and even more for searching for calls with no entry fees at all. That's not to say you shouldn't charge entry fees, but it's something to keep in mind if you want to expand your reach to more artists. So another option in regards to this is to create coupon codes to discount the fee for artists who may not be able to fully pay it. We've seen a few organizations do this in CaFÉ, where they offer low-income artists the chance to email the organization and ask for the coupon code. If approved, the coupon code is sent to the artist and they can use that when checking out on CaFÉ. So I'll show you how to set up a coupon. You'll go to the Events Coupon tab here. And we've got some test coupons in here, but basically you'll just enter the description of it, the amount, if it's in dollars or percentages, the code itself, that's the one that you'll give to the artists. And then you'll also put in the start and end date. This can usually just be for the run of the call. Make sure your status is set to active and select the fees that you want it to apply to. So you could do it for the entry fee, maybe just one of the entry fees if you have two, like we have here. If you have an additional media fee, you could discount that and just make sure you select that here. And then you'll click add to add it to the list, or click edit to make any changes. And that's all you really have to do to set up the coupon. Once the artist has the coupon code, they can enter it in the box that appears when they select the entry fee at checkout. One thing I'll mention that if they have any problems with the coupon, they should reach out to you or our artist help desk before they submit their entry. I know you can't determine whether or not they do that, but you can also just let them know when you give them the coupon to not submit their entry until they've successfully applied the coupon. Coupons can't be retroactively applied without refunding the artist, so it's best to address those technical issues beforehand. Exhibition and event cancellations don't happen as much as they did almost a year ago, but it does still happen. We have 3 main steps we ask you to take to postpone or cancel your event. So first, notify CaFÉ as soon as possible. As soon as you made the decision to cancel or postpone, send us an email to cafehelp@weststaff.org or submit a help ticket through the ticket tab of your admin dashboard. Second, you'll want to initiate a refund request if you have entry fees. If you elect to refund application fees for cancellations, let us know so we can assist with batch refund processing. Also, let us know if you wish to handle the refunds on your own. For example, submit direct payments to the artists or apply entry fees to member dues instead. Depending on whether or not we still have your entry fee revenue or whether it's remitted to you already, will help you take the appropriate course of action. And then I can show you real quick the next step, which is to contact the applications. You want to inform them of your decision to cancel or postpone the event, and be sure to provide them with contact details so they can follow up with any questions. So you want to provide status, refund information, etc. And I'll show you real quick how to do this. You just go to the Events Communication tab. You'll make sure your call is selected. Select the status of the applications. You can select multiple statuses if they're all over the place. You can select, and then you'll go to this page where you'll enter your contact information and then the message body itself. So here you'll want to say any info about new dates for the show, where they can ask questions. If you're refunding them, tell them when they might expect to see those refunds be processed, just anything you can think of. And then from there, you can click preview and click send. So those are the first three main steps that we ask you to do if your call is closed, but your event is postponed or canceled. Let's say your call is still open for submissions and you know that your event will then have to be canceled or postponed. If that's the case, there's two extra steps you need to do. First, set your front end status to disabled. This will ensure that no other artists are able to apply. So I'll show you again. You'll just go to your call editor and you'll set your front end status to disabled and click save. Even if artists are still in the process of applying, setting it to disabled will ensure that they're not able to submit their application. The second step is to update the call's information in your title, short description, and long description. So even if your call is disabled, any artists that have begun their application to the event will actually still be able to see the call details. While they won't be able to apply since it's disabled, they'll still be able to see the event, and they might be wondering what happened. So we ask that you change your title, maybe here to canceled. You put in some information at the top of the short description. You also enter information in your long description with any info about postponed dates or when a new deadline will be available, things like that. You'll just want to make sure you just post it and plaster it all over your call so that you know artists won't get confused about why they aren't able to apply to it anymore. So the last part of today's webinar, I just wanted to dedicate to some tips that don't pertain, that don't pertain to CaFÉ, but are useful to think about when communicating with artists in this increasingly virtual environment. My first tip shouldn't come as a surprise since I've mentioned it several times today, but be transparent. The more information you provide, the more open you are about what the process will look like to artists, and the more you communicate to them, the less you'll have to deal with questions and complaints from your applicants. I am well aware that a lot of folks don't read the prospectus or the submission guidelines and skip over the legal agreements, and they just apply to your show without reading anything. But if you have that information in place ahead of time, there's no excuse for the artist if they make a mistake or miss a deadline. And they can't be caught off guard later if the information was there the entire time. So including any and all information not only helps the artist, but can help protect you if an issue arises later on. My second suggestion is to consider your audience when communicating with them and put yourself in their shoes. For some artists, particularly folks that haven't used CaFÉ before, maybe it's their first time, applying to a virtual or online exhibition through CaFÉ and things are different. There might just be additional information and support resources needed to answer their questions and give them assistance. Of course, our artist help desk is available if you need them, CaFÉ at westaf.org, which is separate from the CaFÉ help one. So you can just ask, you can send them over to us and our artist team is available to help them. So then again, you'll just want to pay close attention to your submission guidelines and ask yourself what information will be most helpful to those artists that might not be tech savvy, or folks that just aren't used to applying online. You could include information about how many images are allowed, what kind of format. We have some resources, and combined with yours, we might be able to prevent as much confusion as possible. My third tip is to create a separate email address specific for the call. This can only be really used if you host many calls for entry per year, or maybe you have many different programs in your organization happening at once. This could help you organize and respond to questions by having a separate email address for that call. This will also help assure artists that if they send an email, they know it's going to the call-specific email, and they know it will reach you and not get lost. Along with that, if you see any frequently asked questions come up, you can create templates of information that you can copy and paste for future emails. This might save you some time and help you respond to everyone. We know just how easy emails can add up, but it's better not to leave artists in the dark. And then my final tip here is just to remind yourself that we're all humans that make mistakes. And with that, we are all dealing with, for lack of a better word, unprecedented circumstances. I know that word gets used a lot, but it's true that artists might miss something or make a mistake, but these are, odd times, and that doesn't mean we can't help them fix it or give them more time. Plans change, you might have to cancel an event, but as long as you're communicative, folks will understand. And at one point or another, we all fall victim to technology glitches and errors, so we can relate to someone struggling and help offer alternatives. In any of these situations, we can try to do our part to support each other, since we're all working within the similar goals of contributing to the arts community, industry, and economy. So I hope these tips are helpful, or at least good reminders of best practices for communicating with artists. Like I mentioned, the CaFÉ team is here for anything related to using the system or hosting our calls. So, and we can also help facilitate contact with artists if needed. So don't hesitate to reach out if you or your artists who are applying need us. Well, this concludes the main portion of our webinar. I appreciate you joining us, and I hope you've learned a little bit about the lessons that we've learned that could help you get through the rest of this pandemic. All right, Ines here, you have a chat question in the chat. When a jury call is set for virtual exhibition after jury, do we have to move the images away from CaFÉ to a separate platform, such as a website or Zoom, to hold the exhibition, or can we direct the public to see the artwork on CaFÉ? Good question. We haven't received this question. I think that this is really important. So there's not really a way to show images in CaFÉ, at least not yet. We are thinking about how to add certain gallery elements to CaFÉ, but at this point, we do recommend that you move the images from CaFÉ to a separate platform. And I'll show you here actually. What you'll want to do is request a download of the high resolution images. So when all the images are in CaFÉ and you're looking at them CaFÉ, they're actually a low res version, but to request those high resolution images all in one place, submit us a help ticket and submit the type as image request. And then this image request, you can tell us which status of images you need, most likely the invited ones. And you just send us this message, and then we'll provide a download link for a zip folder, and that will give you the high resolution images that you can use to add to Zoom or a separate platform or your website. Okay, so back to your question, Dawn, will tags be seen on separate entry images by the jury? So you'll have to tag each separate entry. If your images are grouped together, the tag will apply to all of the images within that same application. So it just depends on which one you're working on. Okay, so in Jury by Artist, the tags will be seen on every artwork image that you tag. You have to tag each of them if you need to tag all of them. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to join us in our next webinar next month.